Hey everybody, welcome to the Conductor Productions Twitch channel. You are experiencing a countdown video right now. The countdown clock is here, somewhere by my head, I think. And I'm currently kind of underdressed in PJs, and there's Studio behind me, and I'm going to show you a stop motion video in a minute, but it only lasts about 60 seconds or less, so I'm going to show you some of the voicing I'm going to do for said video to fill this 5-minute countdown time. So I'm going to get over there, and this isn't my abode, this isn't my home. I'm actually house sitting, so making the best out of this situation and doing a studio in my friend's place, just because gotta still keep on, doing this filmmaking thing. Doesn't matter where I'm at or where I'm going, I bring my gear with me and I continue doing what I can do. So that's what we're going to do right now. I'm going to get over there and let's start doing some voices for this little clip that you're going to see in a minute. We're going to start the voiceovers for this video clip, which is going to be a Tales of Valhalla short introduction to a certain character, and this character's name is Sylvaris. He is an elf archer, and I'm going to be his voice, and he's going to be shooting at Morrow, which I'll do the voices for as well. And at the end, a monster is going to come in, hit him on the ground, because Sylvaris is very overconfident, and I'll do the voice for him as well. So very simple and easy. I can do these voices myself, and let's get started. Hello, I am Sylvaris. Watch me use my arrows.
I am Sylvaris. Watch me use my arrows.
I'm sorry. Voice acting. Characters. Stop. Time for the Mara Warriors, which, if you've seen Tales of Valhalla seen in Season 1, you know how they sound. Now that I did those, time for a cut. Strong.
Ouch.
Okay, and so that is basically it for the voice acting part, and now I gotta edit it and show it to all of you, and we'll do that in a second.
I am Sylvaris. Watch me use my arrows. I am brave. I am strong. I am an elf. Look how far I can shoot. No one can beat me. Ouch. Darn monster.
Microphone's on. Hello world. Alright, and then I think Jeremy, if you want to give me an audio check real quick.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
I think you sound good. Your levels are good. Anyway, anybody who's watching, if you want to let us know if Jeremy sounds okay, and then we're gonna put this up so we can actually see Jeremy. Say hello to the world, all four of us, Jeremy.
Hello, world.
Anyway, okay, so I guess we're going to start with this, and we're going to forego, for those of you who have seen this live stream before, usually I play music in the background, but since we'll be talking most of the time, I'm just going to forego the music this time, and we're just going to talk a little bit. And if you guys have seen the 5-minute countdown, you're going to see that we're going to be talking a little bit about Heroscape, and we're going to get some pronunciations for the names in Heroscape, and the reason why that is because we are, along with myself, Jeremy, we're currently in the process of creating a how would I call it, a stop motion adventure series based off the board game Heroscape and its characters. It's called Tales of Valhalla: The Aftermath Chronicles. I am Ryan, and like I said, the guy you see his big mug on the screen, he is Jeremy, and I'm basically the guy who animates everything, writes a script, get the story together, and Jeremy's the guy who helps polishes everything. He knows all the lore and backstory and how to say names and pronunciations within Heroscape. So Jeremy is a very invaluable member of this crew, and we currently have season 1 of Tales of Valhalla on YouTube. If you want to go and watch it, the simplest thing to do is go to YouTube, on the search bar, type Tales of Valhalla, and you should be able to see the Tales of Valhalla YouTube page, where it has a few stop motion stuff, including, like I said, a whole first season, 10 episode first season. And we're currently in production of seasons 2 and 3, and in those seasons, Jeremy's going to be doing voice acting too for that a little bit, for a character known as Vidar, or how else would you pronounce it, Jeremy?
Vidar.
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 Right. So yes, we have some of the Valkyrie generals going in this adventure story as well, but it does center around the classic figures of the airborne elite. I've given them names and personalities, and you really get to know them fairly well in season 1. So usually these live streams consist of either me working, doing the stop motion, where I live stream like an hour or 2 hours worth of working on the stop motion for the show, or building the sets that I plan to use for the show, like a Heroscape, hex tiles and terrains. I do that virtually on Virtual Escape, which I think you can find on heroscapers.com. And then another show we do is I have chats with people who I work with within Tales of Valhalla, and Jeremy is one of them, and he's been on the show a few times. So, Jeremy, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself real quickly, say where you can be contacted, what you're working on currently.
Well, like you said, my name is Jeremy Unit, and I'm helping with the story of the series. You can find me by the same name on Facebook, or also by the project I'm currently working on, known as the Bohemian Wars. Currently working on, as in probably the most brainstorming. It's very bare bones, so don't expect anything just yet. But hopefully, within the next couple months or so, I'll have something solid to present to an audience. But yeah, definitely. I'm also known as Majora's Incarnation on the Heroscapers forums. So if you ever want to stop by and say hi, PM, read some of my lore debates that I've had on that forums. Some great discussions with other members of the forums about that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, definitely. I'm also currently hosting this channel on my own channel, which is Unit J on Twitch.tv. So I sometimes stream on there when I play Final Fantasy or something like that. So if you want to watch me die, all the games I'm really bad at, go ahead and check out that channel. So,
Always fun
but
entertainment.
yeah, definitely, it's fun to watch me realize how bad I'm at my job. So I'm good DPS, I promise. Anyway,
And
but yeah,
and any questions that anybody will want to, if anybody has any questions about Tales of Valhalla, what is it about as far as stop motion? What's the story about? Um, you know, just any other general Heroscape questions, by all means, go ahead. We're both, me and Jeremy, keep an eye on both our chats. So, anybody got any questions? If you got any questions about the Sylvaris video that was shown at the 5 minute countdown, anything about that? I think the Sylvaris video has been one of the most well liked videos. Although we do have another video that was just released a few weeks ago introducing Sergeant Drake Alexander, who is a little bit more common than Sylvaris, and that's been, I'd say, mostly received well mostly by people. They like, where the characters are going. Only had a couple of comments saying, "Why is he speaking in an Austrian accent?" And I'm like, because I want him to be like, I'm going to pump you up. Um, so I just wanted something very, very macho, very Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone type of character, because I mean, this show, Tales of Valhalla, is half serious, half satirical. Kind of has both that running vibe within the show, and some of the characters I do keep serious. Say like Raylan, who will be having an introduction video this year as well, and others. I do try to keep to their original characters as possible. Keep them serious. But there's some characters that I take some creative liberties on, and Sergeant Drake is one of them, just because he's just awesome like that. So, yeah. So, any comments about that? And I guess we should stop talking and get started, probably. So, okay, Jeremy, yeah, I'm going to have your face get smaller here. And I'm going to pull up the Valhalla map and get this on the screen. And so for names and pronunciations today, we've already done a pronunciation video a few months back, and it was for all the names of the main characters within the Heroscape game line. And so if anybody wants to see a video of that, you can find that on our Tales of Valhalla YouTube page as well. It's there, ready to view. But today we are going to talk about the names of the basically the spots of land, the areas and locations within the Valhalla map, because some of these names will be used in seasons 2 and 3. So not only this video for the benefit of everybody watching this live stream and eventually on YouTube, but it's also for the benefit of all the people who are helping voice acting this series. I have about a few dozen people already who are helping out, volunteering their time and their talents of voicing a lot of these characters. So I always try to do my best to help them as much as possible, and making like video tutorials like this is always helpful for them when it comes to trying to understand and pronounce names in a game they know nothing about. So it's just something that one of the things that I'm trying to do, from since this is a no budget show, just some more things to try and make Tales of Valhalla as authentic to Heroscape as possible. So, Jeremy, this is going to be really in no particular order, and I have the list written down in front of me. But let's stop. Let's stop right now, okay? And let's just go home. Let's start at the top, and that's the very, very north region there. How would you pronounce that? And tell us a little bit about that location.
Okay. Well, I do want to start off first of all, um, bringing up some of the discussions that have been brought up about name pronunciations in the past. Uh, this was on the forums, and it brought up a really good point that I wanted to kind of highlight before we get started.
Sure.
Um, what I try to do is look up, kind of the basis of culture that these names are based on, and pronounce it the best way I can. But disclaimer: Old Norse is a dead language, and so far the closest we have to that language is about the Swedish, I believe. That language is the closest to those sounds, and trying to replicate that is difficult because we don't have a living speaker of Old Norse with us today. So what I do is to try to make it sound as best as possible to that identity, but I will not say I'm perfect at this. I won't say that this is the definitive name pronunciation, TM, copyright. If you don't say it this way, you're a terrible human being.
for
Just-
all those
Yeah.
linguists out there who are like, you still
Yeah.
said it wrong after it's
I
okay.
will not claim perfection in this. That's what I want to put out. Even in a sense, there was a point made about the difference between pronunciation and pronunciation, and I was like, oh man,
Oh, good grief.
this is intense. So I want to put it out there. I'm not perfect at this, but what I want to try to do is be as close as I can with the resources we have to, make it as authentic as we can. But
Sure. Oh, and another thing. And,
sorry.
yeah, no, a disclaimer on top of that disclaimer. Jeremy was notified what names we were going to do just a minute before we got on the air. So you got to cut him a
Yeah.
little bit of slack. Okay.
It's just the best thing. What I actually really like is, even if there is differences in the voices of our voice actors, it helps define the fact. The biggest point of Heroscape is that it's the mesh of cultures. It's this big melting pot of planets, identities, universes, all in one. So if
That are
things
all trying to
sound
kill
different,
each
yeah,
other.
literally, that's what they're focused on.
Yeah.
But if they sound different, that's because they're from a different planet.
Yes.
So it's all good. It helps add to that sense of, uh, the melting pot concept. So even if you notice as you watch the series different ways names are said, we allow that to happen because it adds to the flavor of what we're trying to present. So don't, even if we have this and you're watching it and you hear a name be said, and then you watch the series and it's like, wait, they didn't say it the way that was said in the live stream. What? That we allow that. So
Well, it's not that we allow that. It's just that I try to hold myself at a certain standard, but at some point, the voice actor might have said the line 20 times. They're tired. I'm tired. Yeah. We just want to say the line kind of right. And it's like, even if they say the name wrong, I don't care. Just, say it right this way. And then sometimes I don't even use that one. I use another one. But yeah, I mean, human error, especially when making like any type of videos or short films or whatever, or series, you're going to have error everywhere. So yeah, just everybody take it with a grain of salt. But we do thank you for your support, like especially those in Heroscapers.com. There have been a few people that have like just commented to me like privately, and have really getting a good foundation of support from people on Heroscapers.com. So it's very much appreciated.
Yeah. Speaking of Heroscapers.com, Craig Van Ness, one of the designers of Heroscape, the original idea, he did comment on the pronunciation of some of the names in his own thread, the Q&A.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, someone that did ask him how to pronounce the name Krug. He said it's Krug as in bug. So that's easy to remember it. Krug as in bug.
Well, Krug's easy.
So I'll make sure that's put out to everyone, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the one he has, and I think a few people did ask him about it, and I don't think he has had the chance to address specifically from his own notes how they wanted certain names to be said.
Yeah.
So, um,
And
however, if you do want to take the chance to check that out, that's also a resource, additional resource is his notes on, or his thoughts on the concept of names and how they're pronounced. So
absolutely. And another note too is that Craig Van Ness, I don't think he's seen our stuff yet through Tales of Valhalla, but I do
one day.
think I think eventually he will see it, and I have a confident source which I can't reveal yet. But eventually he might see it, and who knows what will come out of it. But hopefully something good will come out of that. But that's all I'm going to say right now, and we'll leave that for the future. And so yeah, let's get started with the top name then. There.
Yep. All right. So one of the interesting things about this map is that you'll see a certain way a place is spelled, and when the respective expansion set or terrain set was released in the day, the names were spelled different on those sets. So to put it out there, this map I think was designed to give off a feel of the lack of standardization of how names are spelled in this world. They don't have, like a spell check sort of setting. This is an older culture, so pronouncing it the way it's made on the map may be based different from what it is named on the set, if that makes sense. So if I recall the differences, I will say them. If I don't, and you catch them, feel free to comment about it, say something, and be like, "Oh, hey, it's spelled differently on the set. How would it be said this way?" And I'll explain the best way I can. So,
yeah.
with that being said,
and eventually, I'm sorry. And eventually, this will be posted on Heroscapers.com too. Via once I get this on YouTube and it becomes a YouTube video, I'll definitely put this in Heroscapers.com, and I'm sure we'll get tons of comments from it, probably. So, yep. Okay, let's go.
Yeah. With that additional point, lots of additional points being made, but I promise that was the last one. We'll see.
I probably not, but let's just continue.
Yeah. So up north we have the Thalink Tundra, or also known as Thalink, because there's an I and an E in the name. It follows both it's the second, so the second E or the first I. It can be interchanged between the two. With that, it changes it from link to link. So it could be either, depending on if a character is referring to a map, they'll probably say they link. And if they're referring it as having received information from another Valkyrie or anyone else from the planet, they probably say they link. But it refers to the same region, the tundra. Okay. Now, we did receive that as a expansion set. It was the ice, snow, iceberg themed set, and
which are awesome.
Yes, I love the mechanics of that set.
Yes.
It was easy to get someone stuck in the snow, and then you kind of just pick them off as they're trying to fight their way through it. And there were units that were released that had ice-themed powers. They would get bonuses, basically, when they were in the region. And there were a couple of themed battlegrounds that came as part of this region. So the tundra itself is, as we see it, is a continent of its own, and there's several different areas that are addressed. We have the Blood Red River, which is, as it's described, is literally a river that I think it's I, this within the summer or so. There's a specific season is mentioned, and it's during that time the river itself is running with the blood of, several uh, individuals that are killed for possession of this area because it's near a wellspring. So in itself, that this region is affected by the war, and there's also the Valadon Fortress, which was a region that was controlled by a wizard who passed away, but his ghost didn't leave the world. So he haunts the halls of the castle, and because his place is near Wellspring, lots of people try to claim the castle, but then the ghost himself is like, "This is my castle, get out." And so, if you ever played the Valadon Fortress set, you actually have to not only defend yourself from the opponent, but you also have to defend yourself from the ghost. It's pretty interesting. And those are some examples of the region's more notable areas, along with the Thailand Tundra itself, that you can visit.
That's
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's very, very interesting. And one thing I like about addressing everybody watching, one thing I like about having conversation with Jeremy, and one reason why I put these in live streams, so I get these videos recorded, and I don't have to take notes. I can take notes later because this could actually be stuff used for future story events in Tales of Valhalla that whatever piques my interest. There are already things that will be planned for Thaylink. I like calling it Thaylink, so that's what I'm going to call it. But the Thaylink Tundra will be an area that will be used in Tales of Valhalla seasons 2 and 3. I'm not going to say which season, but you'll have characters that will be in that area, and there's probably going to be massive battles in that area as well. And probably going to be used more in the future too. So yeah, very, very interesting. So was there anything else you wanted to say about that, Jeremy?
Only thing I can think of is specifically that region is also home to Zute, which is the Yeti themed units that we have in game. You'll see that they are very territorial, but if you're able to convince them to join your side, they protect your armies relentlessly, and it's pretty interesting because it's kind of in the story, it represents how the planet itself was defending against other world attackers. You have this world that becomes the standoff between several universal forces, but the planet itself isn't going to allow itself to be taken into the hands of those that have bad intentions. So it actually sends nature to help defend it, and some of the units or some of the Valkyrie generals were able to acquire those forces of nature in their favor. Yandar being one of those, he was able to receive the help of the Zute, and they appear in his army. They're themed to be under his faction, but they're not like forces that he marshaled. They're not forces that he summoned to the world. They're from the world itself, and they defend the world because they know it's being attacked by things that don't belong in it. So it's a pretty interesting concept there.
Okay. And now we're going to, since I'm going to start hitting the areas to where they're most likely going to be mentioned in seasons 2 and 3, and then we'll mention the other ones that are probably not going to be mentioned. So we're going to actually take a trip down south now to an area to where there's not a name for, but it's on the southeast part, and this is a relatively unknown area in Heroscape, even though there is a name. Its name is used in a what is it, an expansion pack, I think, right? Yeah, and terrain and stuff. I think you know what I'm talking about, Jeremy. So go ahead and say the name.
The Tikala Jungle. Now, this place, I'm I'm sad about because there was so much potential that came about as a result from this place, but we never got to expand upon it before things got discontinued. The thing is, and if I recall, this is being based off of information from my memories, so that place was inaccessible prior to the war. That entire region is its own continent that none of the previous Valkyrie generals had any knowledge about. And it was only recently, during the war, that Utger came to know of this place through the Volkyrian wasteland. Now, that entire area that is volcanic, that's a land bridge that formed as a result of the war.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't there previously. So we're talking prior to the well springs, prior to the summonings, prior to all of that. These two continents were completely separate. And then this land bridge appears. No, they allude that it is born through the results of the war. Once again, referring to the idea that the planet itself is defending itself against other world forces. And this land bridge appears, and once Utger starts marshaling forces through, scouts tell the other Valkyrie generals, "Hey, guys, I don't know why, but everyone's moving this way." And they're like, "What's that way?" And that's when they realize there's a whole new continent being discovered. That's what's so cool about the jungle. It's new world. It's new territory within this planet that they previously had no idea even existed. And they're all like, "Oh man, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's here. Let's send a scouting party." And that's where we get the story of Swarm of the Mara.
Mm-hmm.
So the entire master set, the second master set that was released with the new additions to Sergeant Drake's abilities and Raylan's abilities, but we have the Sonlin and then Shiori and Major Q10. Those five were appointed by the other Valkyrie generals to scout this new world and figure out why now, of all times, is it available to them. So they not only were they trying to stop Utger from marshaling and taking over this new continent, they were in their own right explorers. They were doing, what we would think the conquistadors of the Spanish era, what they were doing. They were expanding their knowledge of a known world. At the same time, they were trying to protect it from other world forces. Really, really interesting concept. I'm probably going off on a tangent here, but
It's fine.
that's what's really interesting because not only in that same concept is it a new world, the names have no basis in previous iterations. To make it more to explain better, the continent that the war is going on has names based in Old Norse, whereas this continent, the new one, their names sound very tribal, very native in the sense that it comes from a different word source or dialect source that has no basis in Old Norse.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds completely different. The Valkyrie generals sounds completely different. Everything here is different, and it's really cool.
And
So-
do you know what the origin is of Takala?
As far as we understand, or what was revealed to us, Takala is one of the many names of heroes that were part of the tribes that lived in the area. We don't exactly know what he did or she. We just know that name, among most of the names used in the region, refer to heroes of the tribes in the area.
Okay.
So
Alrighty. Well then, anything else you want to say about that before moving on?
it's a if the names sound different, we're going to do our very best to use the proper names, but they definitely don't follow anything Old Norse. So
Okay.
if it like clashes and you're listening and you're like, oh, this is familiar. You know, Valhalla. We got the Valkyrie. We got the characters that look like Thor and Odin and Loki, and then and the heck is this? You know, it's going to hit you like a train because it's a completely different world. So
Yeah.
just remember that the
Yeah.
sounds, names, everything in that area is its own culture. So it's going to sound completely different.
Yeah, and in seasons 2 and 3, a little bit, we will be traveling to Cal Jungle as well. Like I've said before, for seasons 2 and 3, we're gonna have characters go all over the map when it comes to going to Valhalla, doing whatever questing or missions that they're on in seasons 2 and 3. So we're gonna be seeing a lot of the landscape, and that includes jungle, ice, and as well as volcano. So let's move to that next area right by it. And you were already talking a little bit about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Volcarian Wasteland, as we know, um, that I briefly touched on, it's a recent land bridge. So this is new land. This is unexplored land. It just appeared um, in response to the war, most likely. The the forces being brought in from other worlds caused the planet to undergo severe environmental changes, and it created this land bridge. And so we'll be able to see how this place isn't something that people live at. It's not something people should go to, and most of all, it's not a place to fight a war, but it's
It's fun.
contested territory.
Oh,
Because
lava.
the set itself is that
Huh?
the set itself is where we get the lava,
Mm-hmm.
the lava field and the molten lava. And if you've played Heroscape, if you had the chance to play it, putting anything on lava is a bad idea.
But it's so fun.
It's fun, and some of my favorite games were memories, of course, taking the werewolf lord and having him force lycanthropy on one of my opponent's units, and then forcing that unit to jump into the lava. That was nice.
Yes.
But
Well, and just real quick, Jeremy, one of my favorite things. It will be a while before I can animate this because I have other things to animate first, but there are going to be scenes to where you're going to have like bad guys fall into the lava and just incinerate on impact, where just smoke and cinder just comes up from whatever unfortunate creature is going to fall in the lava. So that's just a side note, but I so look forward to animating that. I think people are going to get a kick out of that. I think very much so.
yeah, in the region itself, you're going to see that it's not a place people should be, but it's contested territory because it's the only access point the Valkyrie have between the two continents. And despite its absolute oh wow,
Inhospitable.
yeah, there you go. Thank you. I don't know. Sometimes I have that weird inability to say words, but the territory itself is very difficult to hold because the land itself is dangerous and it hurts. As you play the game mechanics in thinking in meta, uh, the lava field itself. Every round you have to roll for damage. Like I said previously, you step in lava, you have to roll a 20 to survive. It's pretty crazy, and you're going to see if you have a chance to look back to the master set story of Swarm of the Morrow, Sergeant Drake and his band of heroes, the scouting party that was sent forward, they had to cross this land bridge, and they almost died. They had severe issues in this area, in this territory, because not only were they having to fight, they were having to fight the land itself, and it's a really emotional experience when you get the chance to read it, because you can see how painful it was for them to do what they were doing, but they were still doing it for the sake of the planet, for the sake of their their loyalty to their generals, and it's really interesting part of the story. You know, they at that point they thought they were done, and it wasn't until T'Challa intervened where they were able to, or not T'Challa, the Aquila,
Yeah.
the general that of the second continent, when she intervened that she saved their lives. So
Okay. Yeah. The and in the Tales of Valhalla storyline, and I'm just going to give this away. Sometimes I like to give away some spoilers. Uh,
hmm
they actually like sometime between the time of Tales of Valhalla, um, the current events of Tales of Valhalla, and to the time to when the game, after the game got discontinued, somewhere in between those timelines, they started to build like a stone type bridge to cross that mass, almost like a stone walkway across across the Volcarian wasteland to make it easier for people to pass. But in over the course of the years, when like all factions separated within the Tales of Hell storyline, that's starting to break apart because there's been new lava flows and such, and it hasn't been maintained. So it's still almost, it's better than what it was, but it's not as good as it was built. And so you'll see sets conveying that too, to you have broken pieces of stone bridges, and then lava tiles on one form or another, just starting to just melt everything in sight. So yes, very very fun area to play around with. Okay, anything else?
just look forward to hot lava death if
I
anyone
love it.
remembers that meme from a long, long time ago.
I might just have to animate something just for like a 10-20 second short of just a figure being incinerated, just so people can go like, yay,
Fire.
yeah, in the future, lava, you know. But we'll see. That's still not until the future because I haven't even got the lava sets out, and there's tons of work I have to do for this year to get stuff done. But okay, so let's go back to the almost top. The territory that is Jandar's territory, which is pronounced, I'm going to try this, Nastraland. I think Nastralund. Correct me,
Yeah,
Jeremy, if I'm.
we have it's Nastra or Nostra. That's also uh, from various sources. I do believe that that name of that land has changed, a couple letters. The basic idea it's trying to express is that, if I recall my Old Norse, that word is the Northland, basically.
Okay.
It That's what it means. But so Nastralund, Nostralund, that territory is Yandar's, his family's area, if I recall. He's leader of that area. He's archkyrie of that area long before the events of the war. So he's just the political entity, the authority in that area. But then it becomes the one place that represents the forces of good, um, that are fighting for the sake of the planet itself. His fortress of the archkyrie is there, and it's the place that we know, uh, the city of Valgrind, I believe, is the name. I think that city is defined as the last free state in Valhalla. If that was to fall to Utgard, then the war is over.
Mm.
So that place is highly contested.
Mm.
It's the sole, during the events of the war, of course, that's their contested territory. They're defending the city and trying to make sure it doesn't fall, because that would pretty much end the war for everyone if it did. So
Okay. Anything else before I move on?
nope.
Okay. So we're going to now move a little southeast to Ekstrom, I think that's called, or correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy.
That's the Ekstrom. That place is Uller's territory. His sole jurisdiction as Archkyrie, also, if I recall, a family-based. So he received through ancestry the territory of the land. So he himself is the entity that protects it, and I believe it was through proximity before shared motives that Uller and Yander came to an alliance. They decided to protect each other by being neighbors of territory, and then from that decision, they realized they had similar motives, and that's when, out of all the factions and all the groups you'll see, these two seem to be the most united. They don't seem to have any motives to separate, because not only are they family friends, they're also neighbors of territory, and so I believe they see what would happen if they decided to fight against each other. They're literally at each other's throats. So
yeah, close borders.
Yep. So these two, Uller and Yandar, are the closest of all the factions, the most united, most loyal to each other than any of the others that we see. So,
and we'll see a little bit of that loyalty in seasons 2 and 3 a little bit. They're still kind of not, because there's something that's going to happen to the Valkyrie generals in Tales of Valhalla that causes a mistrust within all the factions, and it was mentioned in season 1, even though some people might have not picked up on it, but it'll be explained more come seasons 2 and 3. So, but yeah, there is still that sense of binding trust there. Okay, let's go a little bit south to it's Vidar's territory, I believe, and that's Anund. Or how do you say that? Did I say that right?
Yes. Yeah, Anund.
Okay.
Anund. It's in the same Old Norse German based dialect, so Anund would sound the best. Let me pull up the map on my phone so I can.
Okay.
Maybe I should put Heroscape in the search section. Pulled up Valhalla, New York. I don't believe that's what we're talking about right now.
Nope.
Okay. Give it a little bit to render. There it goes. Yes. So Anund. So that territory is also it's Vidar's territory. His manor's there, or the manor, the Montfrere Manor. The only thing that's different from the others, so Nastralund and Ekstrom are highly contested territories for what they represent, but Anund is unpopulated by the decision of the people itself. They have said to left that entire territory completely to go down south into Kinsland, and they're out of the protective reach of Vidar. So by the time the Alliance first makes their approach to speak to Vidar, he's alone. He's only there with his attendants and his army, but he has no people to protect. So right at that point, we see kind of a difference in motives. Vidar's extremely upset. He's literally questioning, what's the point of an alliance anyway? I have no people to protect. And it's really interesting because you have Yandar and Uller who are teamed up. They're ready to go. They got their forces. They got their people. They got their support. And then Vidar, the old man in the castle, living by himself. He's just like, what's the point? And so you see this difference in political power, control, and reasons for why they fight. So
Because reasons.
because reasons.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Then let's go to. Actually, let's go west to. Let's see here, Hutengard or Jutengard, and that is Utgar's territory.
Yeah, Jotengard. Yeah, this place is contested. Now, what's really interesting is that it's using a word that refers to a character that's already in the series. And the word itself is Jotun, which in Old Norse means giant. So Jotengard or Jotengard would be the way to pronounce it based on Old Norse.
Mm-hmm.
What I really like, what I really, really like, if anyone is having difficulty with the word Jotun or Jotengard, watch Thor.
Mm-hmm.
That movie uses the word a lot, and you'll be able to listen to Chris Hemsworth say it, and that's nice because he has a nice voice.
It's so he's got such a nice voice, I love it.
But
Anyway,
if you want a basis to pronounce that word specifically, I would recommend watching Thor. That's the best way to get that. That's in fact how I started pronouncing it after watching that movie, because before I used to pronounce the J, but as defined in the rules of Old Norse, all J's make Y sounds. So Jotengard would be the
Okay.
place.
Anything, because this is actually an area of Valhalla that, and again, spoiler, which isn't really a spoiler. It's more like, oh no, it's not going to happen. We're not going into this territory for seasons 2 and 3. It'll probably be for later seasons. But is there anything you could tell us that's interesting about this particular territory, castles, locations, anything of interest?
We know that that region specifically is the location of the Forgotten Forest, which was one of the, if I'm not making a mistake here, is one of the first terrain sets we were given in Heroscape, and that is the one of the road and the forest, so the evergreen trees and the bridge that you were able to connect with the walls and everything. That entire set comes from this area, and it's also where you meet the Dumatef Guard.
Yeah.
They're
Wonderful
stationed
Dumatef
here.
Guard.
Yeah, they're stationed here to protect the Forgotten Forest. They say the name comes from the fact that anyone that tries to go there disappears, so no one cares to remember it, basically, because it's just a place you can't go to, because if you try, you die. The guards are very good at what they do, and they protect the road up to that area, and it's one of Utger's most highly protected spots. It also contains a wellspring up there, so he's able to access and have direct control of that area due to the guards, and due to that otherworldly force they hold. They protect the area relentlessly, and it's really interesting how that they just can't fight it. That spot is forever Utger's territory because of the forces he's using. So
Okay. Anything else?
nothing that comes to mind of the area.
All right, let's go to the last territory then, and this is for Einar, however you say his name. Jeremy, help me.
Yeah, it's Einar.
Einar, okay. Fair enough. And this is you say the name. It looks, and it's this area that looks like kind of like a slice of pizza here in the borders. Actually, that's what it looks like to me. So go ahead and say the name of that territory.
That was the Lindes farm.
Yes.
Yeah, Lindes farm. That area, Lindes farm is Einar's territory. It's where we are introduced to him in the story. His, most specifically, the Mirror Lake and his Golden Palace. So he's described as a very rich individual, a very opulent individual. he's got a palace made of gold. I don't think you can really outdo that at that point. And with a place known as Mirror Lake, you got a palace of gold reflecting off of it. It's described as a sight only you can't put into words because it's so glorious, so beautiful.
It's heaven.
And it,
Read Revelation.
Yep. It's he put a lot of financial backing to the appearance of his place, and it kind of gives off the impression that you kind of sense that he's materialistic, but at the same time doesn't present himself that way.
Uh-huh.
And you're led as a reader, as one that's investigating the story, to kind of determine for yourself what was the reason why he made this palace made of gold.
Mm-hmm.
He's not greedy. You don't see that in him. He's not possessive, but he's got a place that only rich people would ever decide to put the effort to build in the first place. So it's a really interesting dynamic there. It's like, is he greedy or is he not? He doesn't act like a greedy person, but he's got a palace made of gold. Huh. But another place to point out in this region specifically is the Durgith Swamps. It's the southernmost point of Lindisfarne. And this place is specific for being a tribal area. There was a race known as the Durgith that lived here, and they were, we don't have actually any identity of what they were, what they looked like, but they were all but driven into extinction at the start of the war for their area, because the area was known to have, access to well springs. And you get to see, first and foremost, the impact of the war on the planet from the get-go. This very powerful tribe in the past gets literally wiped out, and they exist only in name now. There's no really. They kind of allude to the fact that they might still be there, but no one's seen them because they immediately just got wiped out. So we have no idea where they're at, what they're doing, if they're there at all. But they are a casualty of the war. This is also where Kimoshi, the Mara witch, this is where she was reborn. She used the Durgith Swamps, the area specifically, to be resurrected when she was killed in the promotional videos by Sergeant Drake Alexander.
Okay, and if you got nothing else to say, I will give another spoiler since you've already alluded to it, Jeremy. This swamp area in Lindisfarne, right? I don't know my broken English, and this swamp area will be used in seasons 2 and 3 quite extensively, and yes, Kimoshi will be there with a Morrow army for sure. That is something that will happen during seasons 2 through 3. Can't wait to animate that stuff. Now, Jeremy, before we get started with the lesser known territories, I'm just because a few people have hopped on to the live stream, so I just want to say welcome to all of you who are watching. My name is Ryan. This is my co-host Jeremy, and we are going over the names and pronunciations within the board game and the universe of Heroscape, even though the game has been pretty much dead as far as in the business world for the past since 2010. There's still a good following on Heroscapers.com within forums, and they make their own custom Heroscape line. And what myself and Jeremy have been doing within the last year and a half is creating a stop motion animated adventure called Tales of Valhalla: The Aftermath Chronicles. Based off the board game Heroscape, we use all of the original Heroscape figures, the Heroscape terrains, and for those that don't have names, give them names, personalities, try and keep as close as we can to the original heroes that already have names and personalities, and it's just basically half action, half comedy, and it's been a fun ride. We already created season 1 of the series. You can go to YouTube, type in Tales of Valhalla in the search bar, and you should find our YouTube page, which has a lot of fantastic stuff to watch and see. And what me and Jeremy are doing currently right now on this Twitch live stream is we're just going over names and pronunciations for the voice actors, because we got about like a couple of dozen voice actors who give their basically volunteer their time and talent for this game they know nothing about. So we help provide them through these live stream videos once recorded the means to which to understand the names and the pronunciations of this universe. So that's pretty much the premise for this. If any of you who are watching has any comments or questions, feel free. If audio is not working correctly, or if there's something we need to fix visually from this live stream, please let us know too. Or if everything looks good, give us a thumbs up. Don't matter. So we've already gone through the more well-known territories already. And if you didn't see those, just come back when this video is done, and it'll be on Twitch through my Conductor Productions channel, and eventually it'll be on YouTube as well. So now we're just going to go to the second half of this and start just doing the name pronunciations and whatever information we have on the lesser known territories, or I should say, the information that Jeremy has, because he knows way more about Heroscape than I ever will, which is why he's part of the production team to help make Tales of Valhalla just that much better. So, Jeremy, let's continue, and let's go back to the north and go to Laar, if I'm saying that right. I probably butchered that, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I would personally pronounce it that way as well, as Laur.
Laur, okay.
Specifically, emphasis on the A. Since we are going off of Old Norse rules, the A would sound like the best way to replicate that is the vowel sound for A in Spanish, which is ah. So Laur, like you want to have that ah strong when you're pronouncing it, because it fits better with the Old Norse sense. Because that word itself, I haven't had the opportunity to research and to see if that word itself exists in the Old Norse language, but I would, based on what we know about the rules of Old Norse, the A would make an ah sound, so Laur. Now this territory is interesting because it's kind of the access point that's not water-based to Nastralund, and Yandar knows this. He knows that this is how you get to his place. This is how you get to the cities that he's trying to protect. And so it's highly contested. It's probably one of the most fought over lands or fought over territories in the entire series. Here we have the Forsaken Waters. We got Wolf Swamp Road. These are names of areas that you can actually play in game. They're lands you can build, and then you can play fights that are important to the war itself in those areas. Those areas are in Laur, and we also have Miggel's tomb, which remembering that area, that was one of my most played areas in Rise of the Valkyrie. When I first got the set way back in 2004, I think it is. I played Miggel's Tomb over any other build because at the time we only had the 5 sets or the 5 builds, and that was one of my favorites because of the
cave-like
raised area
structure. Yeah.
The cave-like structure.
I'm sure you appreciate it, and for those of you for the YouTube page for Tales of Valhalla, we do have season 1 of the series up on YouTube, and in that series, we actually show that location at one point in season 1. Did you notice that, Jeremy, when you watched the series?
I did not. actually.
Okay, yes, it's when it's the area to where Raylan and company go to stop and sleep for the night, and where they're sleeping is in
Okay.
that arched area. So whenever you go back and watch that episode again with them traveling, you'll see that that area is there. It's just a subtle hint, a nod to okay, this they're in this location of the map while they're traveling. So yeah, Lar is
Pretty good.
yeah, it's the half end of season 1 is in this territory in this area.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's frequented by most, if not all, the forces between Yandar and Utgard. They're constantly fighting over it, so it's uh, a war zone in
Mhm.
pretty much every sense of the word that you can think of.
Yes, and now did this area used to be habitated at all by anything or anybody?
We only know that Miguel's tomb itself is a memorial to an old Archkyrie who lived way, way back in the day. That he was a very prominent figure. So that area, that cave area, is supposed to be where his body's laid. But other than that, we don't have any reference to any civilization or any settlements in the area. If there was any, it's highly likely that they were razed to the ground at the start of the war, and that the place itself, because it is the only access point by land to Nasterlund, it's completely devoid of all people other than soldiers,
Okay.
because they're trying to hold it for their respective parties to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. Because if Udger gains Lauer, he will put everything he has to take over Nasterlund, and
Mhm.
that's a really bad. If any of the war tacticians or any strategists we have watching this show, they want to kind of point out the fact what would happen if the province right next to Yandar's territory were to be taken over, the drastic results that would happen as it, you know, other than what the imagination would allow. I
Mhm.
mean, Yandar's done if Flower falls. So
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, the reason why I asked that because in season 2, at the very beginning episodes of season 2, we actually have one of her big action fight scenes um, in Lauer, and it's in a ruined city that's heavily ruined. All you see are just basically posts of what used to be buildings, and I'm trying to make it look like that this was once a great city a very long time ago, and now it's void of all life, and it's just basically the earth is just growing around it again. So yeah, so okay, and that would so that kind of matches in with that. I mean, like I said, I got to take creative liberties with the show sometimes with things. So but okay, so let's move on then to the next territory, Elsewin.
So Elsewin, we have very little information about.
Okay.
Um, as far as we know, the only time the name is ever mentioned is to name a set of characters that's released in expansion. I'm trying to recall what that was. Let me look that up actually real quick. Elsewin. See, I'm thinking it was the set that would introduce the Templars, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Come on, Google. You do this. Fields of Valor, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's the only time it's ever mentioned,
Okay.
ever in game or in history or in context. It was Wave 7, the Heroes Pack. Uh, yeah, it was definitely the vampire set, actually. So when the
Ew.
vampires were introduced in Heroes of Elswin, Warden 816, Quintella Gwyn, and Isamu. So
Okay, well, I might have to use that territory then when it comes to future seasons for because Oh, wait a minute.
vampire.
I'm not going to say that because that's stuff we haven't even thought of yet, but we've been brainstorming. So okay,
Yep.
moving on. So next we'll do let's see here. We're gonna move a little bit east. Ostrovik, I think is the name of that
Ostrovik,
territory.
yeah.
Yep.
We got Ostrovik. I've seen it spelled as Ostriyik too. The
Okay.
V being mistaken for a Y. Can't tell if that's just the text of itself.
Yeah. Wait a second. Looking
Yeah.
down, you're right. I think it is a Y. Sometimes it's hard to tell
Yeah. So
the spelling. So how would you pronounce that again?
Ostriyik.
Ostrovik. Okay.
Yeah, and to me, it sounds very Russian. It sounds
A little
like
bit.
it comes from that area
Sure.
than anything else. So if we pronounce that in a Russian sense, I think we wouldn't be too far off of the original idea. But it's an interesting area for me specifically because it's where we see Trolls Ford Swamps, which is another set that you can build from the Rise of the Valkyrie set. And Trolls Ford Swamps is weird because it directly states that's where trolls used to be. And then you ask yourself, wait, trolls lived on Valhalla? Question mark. You immediately figure out something's off about this. Why? Because the only trolls we have in Heroscape come from different planets.
Yeah.
They come from Phaland, and then we get the ones that come from the Dungeons and Dragons universe, which the trolls have already been part of it. They come from those worlds. Why are there trolls in Valhalla prior to those summonings? No one will know. So
Yet.
we don't have that information yet. But yeah, this area, actually in between Ostriyik and Upper Bleakwood, it used to be an area that was contested by trolls, and a lot of the Archkyries would have to send their forces to marshal the area and fight against troll raiding parties. So.
Okay. Okay, so as long as there's nothing else, let's move on to some commonly halfway between common and we don't know what territories these are, which is, and we'll just do both at the same time since it's practically both the same name, Bleakwood and Upper Bleakwood. And if I can say something real quick, I don't know what your information on these territories are, but this reminds me kind of like in Lord of the Rings, Mirkwood. For me, it has that type of sense of being like a very dense, foresty type area with so many dangers, and you just never know what's going to be around the next corner. So that's kind of my impression on it, but that's just from someone's observation who knows nothing about like the Heroscape map in general. So go ahead, Jeremy, and tell me what you
Give
have
me just a
done.
moment.
Sure.
I'm going to I want to grab the Shades of Bleakwood so I can show viewers what actually lives in the territory.
Z ghosts.
Yeah. So give me just a second.
Okay.
I'm going to be right back and go get those.
No problem. I'll just have to figure out what I'm going to say now since Jeremy is gone, and he's the only one that like speaks interesting things, which is why I have him on here. But no, Bleakwood is, if any of you who's watched Tales of Valhalla Season 1, that is an area that the Airborne Elite are in the first half of that season. They're rummaging in there trying to find a glyph of power and end up running into a rogue Dumatef guard and fighting in it. So we have been in that location basically. It's as central to the heart of Valhalla as possible, at least as far as that landmass is concerned. And so when I originally started this series and was writing the script for it, I'm just like, okay, let's make this simple as possible. I have grass terrain, I have tree terrain stuff, and just trying to make that as simple as possible for me, because since I had a lot of stuff, I could work with it to animate, and I could do wide spaces or whatever for that area, make it very foresty, and have that element of danger that it's just these four soldiers that are just on their own trying to find something and running into whatever trouble they run into, even if it's trouble they create themselves. So, yeah, that's just my take on the area. And for Jeremy, they're still just, I see his wall and ceiling, basically, where he lives. And right now, let's see, what time is it? Okay. So right now, currently my time, we're about an hour and 20 minutes into this live stream. And depending on how long we take with either, we're going to finish the rest of these territory names within the next, I'd say, half hour, 40 minutes or so, or we're just going to rush through them because I want to be finished in the next 40 minutes or so. I want to be under 2 hours when it comes to be making this talk. And let's see, he's still going through his, I see him in the background, going through his figures. And for Shades of Bleakwood, there is actually a Shades of Bleakwood figure in season 1 too for like 5 seconds. And it goes, ooh, it's like in like the middle of the night type scenario. And it just passes by unnoticed, but we'll probably be using those ghost specter type figures, not in these upcoming seasons, but probably in future seasons. We will be using them a lot. Okay, what else to talk about? But yeah, Bleakwood will not be in seasons 2 and 3 since it was already covered in seasons 1. And as I was mentioning a little bit before as well, in the future, Jeremy is sitting down and coming back to the live stream, so I do not have to ramble on anymore. You found what you're looking for, Jeremy?
Sorry about that.
Oh no, that's fine.
I am back. Yeah, so due to the fact that my organization skills are probably argumentably the worst known to humankind,
Probably as good as mine.
the ghost seems to have eluded me, but I did find their character card. So let's see if I can get that into the camera.
Okay. I was actually mentioning that a Shade of Bleakwood does appear in season 1 for like 5 seconds. And that's also during the night scene when Raylan is arguing with the Airborne Elite about just will you go to sleep, and then it passes by like in the foreground of them sleeping. So, all right, go ahead and talk.
See if...
Yep, we can see it pretty good.
Gotta wait for the... All right. So you see right there, these guys are actually, in the same concept of the planet itself fighting back against otherworldly forces, except in this case, it's not a sense of defending the planet more as it is taking advantage of food sources, if that makes sense. The Shades of Bleakwood frequent the area because Bleakwood in itself is known to contain a forest that's described to grow so densely together, so like the trees grow so tightly and compact that it shuts out all light. So the forest ground itself is it's ensnared in the eternal night, and
that
by
really
the sources of magic.
That really reminds me of Mirkwood a lot. So were they trying to? Yeah. Did they really steal from like The Hobbit? It's like it sounds like you're talking about The Hobbit here.
I can't say if that's an inspiration. I would assume so, based on the similar spellings.
If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, flies like a duck, then yeah, it's probably a duck. Okay. Anyway, okay, continue. I'm sorry.
Yep. No, it's all good. So these shades are born as a result of the lack of light on the forest floor or the forest area, and they're like half-lives. They were born from the magic of the forest itself, but they didn't seem to have completed their existence, and because of that, they're constantly seeking food sources to take over bodies, to take over vessels, and You see that through their power, Soul Devour. You see that through their class, their their personality, and they're factioned to Utger, but it's very debatable if he controls them at all, or if they kind of just help him keep the territory under his name because no one wants to go there in the
Mm.
first place because of their
Mhm.
presence.
Mhm.
But now following this, one of my kind of I usually have like theories about how certain things work in the Heroscape universe, and based on what we have and what we don't have and the information that's been provided, we have the fact that the planet itself can create life.
Mhm.
We have that fact through the Volcarian guards and their cousins, the Granite Guardians. So, these beings of rock and stone or of lava that seemingly come out of the planet itself. And
Mhm.
then they fight for specific forces. And then we have these shades, which seem to be born in the same process, but because of the forest locking out light, they don't get to complete their creation.
Mhm.
So this isn't canon. This is just my theory. This is headcanon that the ghosts and the Volcarian guards and the Granny Guardians are the same life forms. They
Mhm.
come from the same concept. They were born from the planet itself. Just one didn't get to complete its existence, whereas the others did, and they took bodies of
Mhm.
stone or bodies of lava, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I think they all come from the same source of magic.
Alrighty.
But yeah, so to speak of the area itself, we have that forest, but specifically Bleakwood is actually where we know Uther comes from. Uh, if you
Mm.
see on the map, there's a place, the Kyrian Mountains. That's where the minions are from, and that's where he's from. So, for context, actually have them right next to me because they're one of my favorite units. The minions of Utger, as you
Mhm.
see right here, the red-skinned, axe-bearing individuals. These individuals serve Utger to the uttermost, and Utger himself is actually seen as one of these. If you actually look on the map, there's a drawing of Utger
Do-do-do-do-do.
on the, I think it's the southwest.
Yep.
That drawing of the
Right
Valkyrie,
there.
that's what Utger looks like,
I'm circling it
and
right now.
he's basically one of these guys. Yeah,
Yepers.
and they all they all live in that territory in Bleakwood. So whether he owns it or he's just from the mountains, it remains to be seen. But I do believe that Utger owns the territory because of his ancestry from there, that he was born there,
Mhm.
and basically when the war started, that was the first place to go into his power, was because of the forces he was summoned from the mountains.
Mhm.
We also see Soul Razor Canyon being one of the prominent locations. For those that don't know, Soul Razor Canyon was actually a online exclusive scenario. I think you can find it on Heroscapers. Actually, you can find it on Heroscapers.com.
Mhm.
There, multiple individuals, by efforts of multiple individuals, have acquired all the files in a PDF format, and you can download it. You can download the whole thing in one go on the website, which is really nice. And
Mhm.
Soul Razor Canyon are one of those, but it was a very old, one of the first online exclusive scenarios, and it's described as a place where the wind blows so harshly. People say it sounds like the voices of the dead. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of the theme that seems to surround Bleakwood in general is just souls of the dead or
Sure.
incomplete life or life that hasn't specifically left yet even though it's been dead for a while. It's a
Mhm.
really creepy looking place uh, in in the imagination of reading what's to that area. You got demon looking individuals that live in the mountains, and then ghosts
Mhm.
in the forests, and voices of the dead in the canyons. It's pretty crazy.
Mhm.
So, and
Yeah.
uh, to finish it off, the Upper Bleak area. Uh, we don't know specifically if Ucker controls that as well, but it does pertain to the same region. Uh, the notable areas is the Table of Giants, which is one of the Rise of Valkyrie sets. and Scrollsford Swamps connects here. So it's that connect point between Ostervik and Bleakwood is the swamps. So.
Yeah, and the Giants table as well is in Tales of Valhalla Seasons 1 as well. And the I don't know if you noticed, that's where the Airborne Elite do battle with the Morrow Warriors during that episode 5, 6 in season 1. So I just got juice. Hold on. I think it's pineapple. But yes, so yeah, I don't know if you noticed that, Jeremy, for the show.
I recall that.
Yep.
That episode, or that part of the fight where they were really they were at their wits' end. It was pretty cool. Not going to spoil what happens because you have to watch it. But...
Yeah. For those who haven't watched it, watch it. We have now I think for all 10 episodes, with the exception of 1 or 2 of the episodes, we have over 100 views for every single episode. So that's kind of sweet. But yes, so okay, that's Bleakwood, and let's move on to let's see here, Aunstrom. Did I say that right?
I pronounce it Onstrom.
Onstrom. Okay.
Because basing off the in on, and then Strom is easily recognizable by Maelstrom, if anyone's heard that word.
Okay.
I can't seem to recall what language that's from, but the word for whirlpool is Maelstrom, and then so you have Onstrom, and then Ekstrom. So it's all referring to a storm of sorts between those two areas. But what exactly Ek or On stand for, I do believe they probably exist in the Old Norse language, but I'm not entirely sure what they represent. So definitely something else to research later on. Those things I like adding in trivia sections of the Wikipedia for people to read. There's a little, what does these words mean? So,
okay.
But yeah, as far as we know about the region, aside from it's never mentioned in the story. It's definitely seems to be a important area because it connects so much. It connects Ironar's land to the rest of the continent. Between that and the Mirror Lake, it connects it to Bleakwood, which makes it dangerous, and then it also connects to Jotengard and Crumland. So it's one of those central areas, and I would imagine it's crossed off then. But the one thing I want to point out specifically is if you look really closely at the map, there's very sparse vegetation on it. So in my imagination's eye, or my mind's eye, I see Onstrom as a heavily desert-themed area.
Yeah.
Sandy.
Kind of like what Crumland is.
Mountainous. Yeah, there's no vegetation, so I would assume, based on that, on the map's description or coloring, that place is a desert of sorts.
Mountainous type desert. Yeah, I would think so too. And so let's anything else for that area?
Nope.
Okay, so let's move next to and go to Crumland.
Yep. That area as well has no mention in the story thus far. Well, as far as the official goes, we don't have any mention of it. It itself is probably the most desert-looking area on the map. There's, in comparison to Onstrom, that has some trees kind of on the border areas. Crumland has literally no trees except for the coastline. So it's pretty. I can imagine that being something akin to the Sahara, just nothing but sand dunes everywhere. They even have there's a small area. I don't know if you can see it on this map, but a little bay, kind of like an inlet in between Crumland and Jotengard. It's actually called the Sea of Sand.
Oh yeah.
So it's Yeah,
I see it.
it's a place of very desert themed, but no mention at all in the official storyline. So
We have and in Crumland, that's Crumland is the area where you have Geert and Light Folly at the end of season 1, and Geert is shouting, why are we standing here in the middle of nowhere? And that's exactly what it is. It's just all desert, and it's just I
Yep.
mean, the worst guard duty position anywhere probably in Valhalla.
You can
Is
imagine.
that place, yeah.
Yep.
So it just tells you a little bit about those characters and why they got stuck there. So moving on, then let's go to, and it's like this little. What'd you call this?
I think peninsula.
Yeah,
is the proper
I'd
term.
say it's probably a peninsula. And it's Athenoc, right?
Yeah. I always pronounced it as Athenoic.
Oh, Athenoic.
Or
Okay.
Athenoic. Athenoic. I think it depends on what language. If we're using the Old Norse, Athenoic would be proper because of the
Okay.
or Athenoic. But the question is, where does this word come from? And when I read it, the first thing that comes to mind is like Inuit, like Alaskan sort of sense, and more based in that area. And because living in Alaska, you see names like this all the time, similar names, sounding names. And so when I first read this, first thing that came to mind was Alaskan. Whoa, but why is it down south? And stuff like that. But I would definitely pronounce it using Old Norse. Athenoic would be or Athenoic would be the way I would go with. Athenoic.
Okay.
So.
And so anything notable here, or is just the name and that's pretty much it?
Yep. Okay. There is no mention of it in story, and it looks half desert, half mountain.
Yeah, it does. It was very mountainous, actually. So okay, let's go to. I'm probably gonna butcher this, but Bronglade.
Yes, that's how it's stylized. It is spelled in the way it would be spelled if it was like Old English. So definitely an older form of English, but it is pronounced the same way. It would be Bronglade.
Okay.
And the most notable aspect of this region is it's the entrance to the Underdark is found here.
Okay.
It's not marked on this map, of course, because this map came after. This map came before Dungeons and Dragons was introduced into the series. But if you do play the online scenario, Road to the Underdark, you access the Underdark from Bronglade.
Okay.
And from there, you start the whole third master set, the dungeon area. You go into there, and you have the connector regions, and that's where you learn about the ancient civilization and the ruins that are built underground. But the access point to that is here. And as far as we know, this is where the character Jotun, so the giant that serves in Uller's army,
sure,
he was assigned to guard that area. So he's in this region as the guardian.
Which is why we probably won't see him in seasons 1, 2, or 3.
Yep.
But we'll probably see him sometime. We got to bring that big guy on board sometime in the future, just not now. Because I honestly don't know how I would animate him. It would actually be funny,
Chance of awesome.
All you would see is his feet, because it's really hard to do in their equivalent, like a 12-foot tall giant next to a figure. So it's like you have the figure looking up, and all you see is like the feet and ankles, and the figure standing right next to it, like, "Oh, hi, how are you?" I don't know. I'll have to brainstorm that in the future and see what comedic things we can come up with. But okay, so that's interesting. Okay, let's go over to Kinsland then.
Yep. Kinsland is the last connecting region of the first continent to the continent where Tikala Jungle is. that's where you would access the Volcarian Wasteland. It's where you would access all the land bridge itself. Specifically, that tiny little corner that you can see on the very northeast area of Kinsland.
Yes.
That's the Searing Pass.
Mhm.
The Searing Pass is something you can play as well. You can build this, and Searing Pass is a highland of sort. Kind of,
Mhm.
it's a raised territory, and there's lava fields there, and
Mhm.
it's highly contested because it's the access point between the two continents, basically. Anything else specific to this region, off the top of my head that I can remember? Kinsland is where Vidar's people went when they mass exodus left Anund
Okay.
during the start of the war.
Mhm.
They went to Kinsland for safety. The primary reason they say is because the water was being poisoned by the Marrow in Anund, and they needed proper water sources as well as a place of safety, a place of sanctuary, so they escaped into Kinsland. But at the same time, it is also a place that Utger is sending Cyprian's army into, because we get a brief explanation that Cyprian has had the water of the well springs, and as a result, he himself is summoning his undead army into Valhalla. And although we have no units that pertain to Cyprian, you can see a lot of custom work being done for that, especially custom classic creators of Valhalla. They made units for Cyprian's undead army.
Mhm.
But the general concept is that army is being pushed into Kinsland at the conclusion of the story that we have access to from the official set.
Hmm.
They were being sent there to hold the region,
Hmm.
basically. So
Interesting.
there's probably a lot of skeletons there
Yeah.
for the undead that we have.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We'll see how it pertains to ToV in the future. 'Cause I'm not going to give everything away.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh yeah.
Okay. And then if there's nothing else, then we only have one more place to talk about, and that's the big island that everybody probably misses when they look at the map. Actually, I wouldn't even call it an island. It's more like its own continent, kind of, really, in a sense.
Yeah.
But it's way up here in the northeast. And Jeremy, go ahead and talk a little bit about, because I know there's some story on this, so go ahead and give us your knowledge about that.
The saddest fact about this place is there's actually no mention of it in the main story. They
Boo.
don't bring it up. They don't say why it exists. It's odd because it's such a large landmass. It has a name. For example, if you look on this map, Takala Jungle doesn't have that name, and we don't find out about that name until people go into there. But previously, that entire place wasn't even known to the Valkyrie. But Hawkland had a name from the very beginning, but aside from that, there's no mention of it. There's no concept of how they're being affected by the war. There's no reference if they're contributing forces. In fact, one of my favorite pastimes to refer to when I did a lot of Heroscape fan fiction back in the day, and I used Hawkland a lot because there was zero reference to it, and I could basically do whatever I wanted with it because all we know is that it's a continent and it's there and it has a name and that's it. It's sad because it's by far one of the most interesting areas in the map that have no context given whatsoever in the official scenarios that we have.
It's the downside of having like a storyline that you come up with and then you end up discontinuing it sometime in the future without like letting everybody know well, this is the conclusion, and this is how everything explains everything. We're probably never going to get that. And
Yeah, and this is, you can quote this as official if you ever want to refer back to this as in court. I hope not. Don't use this in court. But I have written proof that Wizards of the Coast has said they will not release any future scenario information or biography information. I wrote them a letter, and they actually replied back to me saying they don't have the permission to do so.
oh, how nice.
So
That's not nice.
I know it's not nice. It's terrible, but that's the official standpoint. Like, I have the letter, you know, with
Of course you
Wizards
do.
of the Coast. Yeah,
I'm framing that.
I wanted to know. I wanted to know. I had to know. So I wrote them a letter, and they wrote me back, and they said they can't publish, and I was downtrodden. But I have an
Yeah.
official document saying we won't be able to know anything about anything else. But for good news, this means we, as content creators, as creatives in general, we can add on to the story now, because we will not, this place is uncharted territory.
Yes.
So have fun with it.
Exactly. And we, that's right, we can make up our own stuff, and we will not be denied some type of conclusion or continuing storyline because we want it, dang it, and we'll make it up ourselves. Okay, so with that, I think just another notable mention, because there's another name here on the map, which is the body of water in between Hawkland and the other landmass of Valhalla. You want to explain a little bit about that?
Bitter Sea. So we get very small mentions of the Bitter Sea. Particularly, it's not really alluded to as much. In fact, we don't really hear much of a naval aspect of Heroscape, if at all. I do believe a lot of people were asking for it. Some people actually made custom naval battles. Like, they would build ship-shaped scenarios, and then
That
they would
would
have
be
these ships attack each other.
fun.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be fun.
I can't think of the forum poster that actually did a whole thing on pirates.
Like
It was really cool.
What would be really cool is a hex tile built ship.
Yeah.
And then you could put pirates. You could put pirates.
Yeah.
in Heroscape.
They actually have that.
Awesome.
They actually have that on Heroscapers forums. I wish I could provide the link.
Oh, that's
it's
fine.
Off of my memory, but if you go into
Heroscapers.com. Yeah. Heroscapers.com, just ask questions.
Yep. You can find some individuals have put the effort to build ship-shaped structures out of Heroscape tiles to replicate what it would be like to fight a Heroscape battle on a map, or on an ocean with ships. So it's pretty cool. Really fun thing to try out. But aside from that, we don't really have that mention of a naval aspect of Heroscape. We don't really have a mention of anything going on in the ocean itself. But it is specifically referenced that the Vulcarian wasteland. So if you look closely to the map, the Vulcarian land bridge itself, there's kind of like this line tongue-like extension of land that goes into the water, and it has no connection point anywhere else. That spot specifically is described as this Vulcarian wasteland. If anyone has built it in the past, if they remember, when you bought the Vulcarian wasteland set, it came with that one scenario, and that one scenario was literally just that long strip of land. It was just one big line, and then at the very end of it, it was just lava.
Yep.
Yeah. That's on the map. That like line-shaped structure you see up there, that is in between the Bitter Sea and the Molten Sea. That spot is described as a port, a landing point from the Bitter Sea. So, whereas we don't really get much naval aspects of the Heroscape or any mention, they do say there are ships, and ships are being used, and they cross the Bitter Sea to access that little long line of land and land there to try to uh, go and marshal their forces in Volcarion itself in the land bridge, so it's protected from Ugvir's forces and anyone else that tries to take the land bridge for themselves.
Okay.
So
Interesting. Okay, well, Jeremy, anything else you would like to say? Because I think we got done with everything that we needed to get done. Anything else you would like to say before we close this live stream?
if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Mhm.
That's the best part about this. We do like knowing what your thoughts are on this. You can ask on the forums. I know this is going to be a forum post, and we do encourage commentary, any kinds of commentary. Um, Feel free to ask any questions at all. We'll answer as soon as we can, and explain, our ideas and our concepts behind everything that we say in the show. And if you're not able to contact us on the forums or post on the forums, if you're not a member of the forums, feel free to private message in Twitch. Feel free to message in YouTube. You have my information. My Twitch channel is Unit J, that tag, and then I'm also hosting it right now. So if you go to my channel, you can see what we're streaming right now. So you can definitely message me there, or you can message me on the forums. You can message me on my YouTube. It goes by my name, and we definitely encourage questions. That's one thing we don't want
Any kind
anyone
of
to
talk is
feel.
wonderful.
Yeah. We don't want anyone to feel that we're going to put these points out and then boom, we're standing by it. If you have a suggestion at all, feel free to bring it up, and we encourage kind of like an open discussion about the content that we go over. And going back to my disclaimer, like I said, these pronunciations aren't perfect, based on what I've done research on and what I think would sound best. If it sounds better in a different way, or if it sounds different in the show, we do. It's not in the sense that we're trying to like be the final judgment in all of these concepts. This is everything that we've put work into it and done the best we can, and don't feel like we're calling the final card on this. In that sense that this is the final statement being said of how this is said or how this is pointed out. This is still a creative venture, and we have taken liberties because it's fun, to be able to
Yes, it
put
is.
your impressions as well as what we have, the content we have, to be also to put your thoughts on it and your perceptions of it, and kind of just make something really cool out of it. So
Absolutely.
yep,
Absolutely. Well,
I believe that's all I have to say. So
very
thank
cool.
you so much for watching.
Yeah, and thank you, Jeremy, for joining me for this live stream, which, if it would have been just me, it would have been really, really, really boring. And probably only lasting 15 minutes, because it'd probably be like, okay, I'm reading this name, I think it sounds this way, moving on. And that's what it would have been like. So, yes, I appreciate you being and all the help that you and the rest of the crew and the team provide when it comes to making and creating this show continually. Because there's always questions that I'm throwing at you or ideas. So it's always, I say this every time, but I can never say it enough. I always appreciate having you on board and part of this team. And for those of you who are watching this, be it on YouTube via heroscapers.com or just on YouTube, or Twitch, yes, feel free to comment and really help, if you can, support the stop motion series. It is a really fun series, and we're doing our best to try to make it as good as possible within the skills and abilities that we have, and just continuing to try and pump out content as much as possible. So we do thank you all for watching, and probably be another week or so for another live stream. And so we'll see all of you who are watching us on Twitch then. And for the rest of you, thank you for watching, and hope to be back soon with another chat with Jeremy, and probably in future chats, since we've gone through all the names pronunciations. Now we'll probably get into backstories and characters and such in the future, and possibly storylines as well. We'll probably explore that. So that will take a lot of time. That'll be like a couple of dozen, 100 chats that will probably take to go through all of that. But it would be good to look forward to that, especially give us something to do once we have seasons 2 and 3 completed. And that I want to take a break, yet still provide a little bit of content. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so let's end this. Then I'm going to play a countdown video. Once again, I do thank all of you for watching, and we'll see you next time.